Welcome to part 4 in our series of Be Your Own Advocate. I love this series because it can make such a huge difference in giving you better medical care and a better communication with your physician and your healthcare practitioners. And that means improved in your health, hopefully. So today we're talking about how to improve your doctor's appointments. One little tip that just sounds like such common sense is just to call and confirm your appointment date and your appointment time. And you may want to clarify the address of the office just to make sure, the clinic, just to make sure that you know exactly where it is. You also want to check and see if they've received the blood work that was done or any medical tests that were done, and make sure that the office of the physician you're going to today has received all those. You'd be amazed how many times that ball is dropped in that whole network of physicians and referrals. And have these received, whoever you're going to today, have they got everything? And now back to your primary care, have they received everything that was done from the specialist? Because health is in the details. So getting the best health care means you have to keep tabs on the details. So before you go to your appointment, make sure you've done a little bit of paperwork at home. One thing to do that you may want to take with you is called, and Crystal's going to post these on our website, and the links will be down below in the description area, is a health contact list. And so you know your physician's information, who's your pharmacist, your preferred pharmacy, your preferred lab, if there's any other providers that you've been working with, any other physicians like this, you would write them down and just keep tabs on all of that. Sometimes maybe like a pretend example is when someone will say, well, I'm just not happy with my pharmacy. Well, go in and visit with them. Do a little research. Go and visit a few different pharmacies in town. Visit with the pharmacist. They will do that. And they'll especially do that if you call ahead and visit with them to find out if that's who you want to work with. This is, again, someone who would be joining your healthcare team, your pharmacy who fills your prescriptions. And so it matters that you feel comfortable asking questions and that they're open and receptive to having that communication with you. But also when you go to your doctor's appointment, especially if it's a new physician, they're not going to know who your preferred pharmacy is, and you've got that information right with you. So another form we make available is called a patient information form. And this is one of my most favorite forms because you can see a visible difference in your physician and their nurse when you bring this in and filled out. And so there's room to put your personal information that they're going to be checking, and your current prescriptions, any supplements you're taking. If you don't take supplements, most of my customers do, or over-the-counter things you're taking. And this is a place to write either symptoms, questions, concerns, where those are the things you want to discuss with the doctor. So when you go into your appointment, this is what I recommend. You have a folder. Make sure you have a notebook and your own pen, and then that you have your pocket folder. These are just cheap things from Walmart or Office Depot, and you've got your forms filled out and any lab work that you may want to go over with them, things that you've highlighted on, made notes on, questions, things you want to draw to their attention. What does this mean? Why? And you've looked this over at home ahead of time so that you're clear on what your questions are. And on this side, we carry the patient information. It was fun to see the nurse's eyes and response and the physicians in the first time we used these. And literally the nurse's comment, I had my family member hand this to her, and she started asking all the questions, and literally it was all right on this form. And she said, oh, you just made my job easier today. And in my mind, I'm thinking that was the whole idea, to go in organized and prepared. But it also meant that she's entering all the information accurately, and there's less chance for error. So down here we made notes. We discussed this at home before we went to this appointment, and we're visiting a cardiologist on follow-ups for AFib. So this particular appointment, we wanted to request would he prescribe cardiac rehab, and we wanted to talk about some symptoms he was having from a medication, and so that's all on here. So I notice physicians on that stool, they kind of go like this, and I think they do that wanting to be casual but yet professional, but wanting to help you be relaxed and comfortable in your doctor's appointments. And I think that's done. I think that's great. Especially a cardiologist is going to be aware that a lot of patients have white coat syndrome, which is where your blood pressure just naturally rises because in response to your stress, your nerves, your anxiety over going to your doctor's appointment. And the first day when we used this and we handed that to the physician, he literally went like this and sat up straight and looked at this form and said, "Oh, well, this is everything we need." And his comment was, "We should use something like this." And my answer was, yes, you should. And they don't, but they could. But because they don't, you can. And it isn't that you're trying to take over the doctor's appointment. However, let's get real here. It is your appointment, but you're wanting to make sure that you're communicating all the details, and you communicate concerns, questions, problems, things you want to draw to their attention, and you've got that all in your file. Now they should have all of this lab work, whatever has been done, and of course every appointment's going to be different, but part of the reason I want to mention this is because, and we have this in our medical records here, so here was the appointment, and it was a cardiology visit, and this is what took place, this is what was communicated. If you remember in the previous class, in class 2 of this series, I mentioned about the importance of giving copies of your medical records, and so we've come prepared for this. And you'll notice down here it says a follow-up in 1 month, okay? And so when you're out front checking out, they say, okay, the doctor would like to see you in a follow-up visit in 1 month, and you go, oh, okay. So you make this appointment. So I've asked people, so how do you prepare for your doctor's appointments? And so you're aware of the day, time, and you have that in the back of your mind all day at work, and you clock out, dash to the car, race across town, make sure you got your keys, your wallet, your glasses, whatever. And then you get there, and you're happy that you're on time, and you go into the doctor's appointment, and they say, so, what are we here for today? What are we going to talk about? What is this appointment about? And in your mind, you're like, don't you know? Because you told me to come back in a month. I'm not really sure why we're here, but it concerns me if you're not sure why we're here. Well, that's actually your opportunity to whip open your little file and say, oh, well, here's what we're here to talk about. And why would you know that? Because last time before you left on your exit, you got a copy of what took place back then, and you read it at home, used your little highlighter, made notes if needed. And so with this in mind as to why you're going to this physician, that's how you're filling these out. So here's today's paperwork, and this is your patient information. And so you can go in and be a better advocate for yourself. You know why you're there. You know what you're following up on, what they asked you to follow up on. You kept track of that for the last month, and you're there to adequately communicate. So why all the prep? Part of it is because people are a little anxious, a little nervous maybe, concerned, and so they're not always quite clear on what's been communicated with the physician. But really the bottom line is, we go to the doctor because we don't feel good. We're not at our best, and this isn't our prime. And so the more you prepare, the more likely the physician is able to give you their best care, which benefits you. So a little bit, some other forms that Crystal will make available, and we'll be adding to our website with this. Here's a medical data form that's just different than the one I prefer. I like to use this patient information. This is my personality, and this is the kind of thing I prefer that we use in our appointments. But we've made up some other ones. This would be of concern if there's things you've had, especially prescriptions you've had allergic reactions to in the past. So that includes that. If you wear a pacemaker, if you're diabetic, like medical conditions maybe the physician wasn't aware of. This is a form you can use that includes surgeries or surgical procedures you've had in the past. And of course, all of these can be filled out because you were a good person and you filled out your consultation forms and you filled out your timeline back from part 1 in this series. And so you have all this information at your fingertips at home. We're not dragging all that to every appointment. We're just picking and choosing what's most relevant to this physician and this doctor's appointment. This is a list that is just to help keep tabs on your symptoms of any kind, or you can use it to write anything else you need. This is a med minder. What are you prescribed and what's your dose and when are you supposed to be taking it? Do you have any other over-the-counter drugs or supplements? And this is very specific for medications and supplements. How much are you taking and how are you doing with those? So let me mention something. This perspective comes from physicians, which I found was very grateful actually that they shared this. So their license is tied in with the American Medical Association. And I'm going to just use the cardiologist as an example. Here I am. I own a health food store. This is year 31. I opened my store in 1992. Love what I do. This is my calling. I love supplements. But I, myself, and a lot of my customers are doing prescriptions and supplements. And sometimes they'll admit to me that they're not honest, really, point blank. They're not honest with their physician as to what they're taking for supplements. They're upfront about the drugs, okay? But they're not about the supplements. And so we went through this with the cardiologist. I basically ratted out my family member to say, well, this family member is also taking this, this, and this for supplements. Oh, the cardiologist said, oh. And so we talked about the pros and cons to fish oil. We talked about brands. We talked about dosages. So we had this visit, my family member and I, at home as we prepared these sheets. And their comment is, doctors don't know anything about that and they don't care. And so I wanted to test that theory. So there we are in the visit and the doctor's appointment, and we're towards the end and we finished all the medical things. And so I just brought this up. And my family member learned, actually, in fact, the cardiologist was very knowledgeable. Now let me jump back to the AMA, American Medical Association. So they sort of frown traditionally on a cardiologist recommending maybe or suggesting that maybe you would use a really high quality fish oil as a part of your repertoire of supplements for a heart condition. That's not universal, it's per individual. But people assume the physician doesn't know anything. I beg to differ. I think you need to ask and you'll be shocked. Most of them know a lot and are very experienced. They're not prescribing because supplements are never paid for by your insurance company, and they're not bringing it up in the conversation, partly because the American Medical Association really frowns on that. But if you bring it up to your physician, then they're free to talk about it. And you might find they know a lot more about it than you ever dreamed they did. My belief is that there's a huge need to just be honest. And I like a form like this, or like our patient information sheet, that is my favorite. where you're very open and honest about what supplements you're taking, the dosages, and what prescriptions you're taking. So the other thing is this also helps communication between, which you're probably not necessarily getting from your primary care physician, say, to your cardiologist and back. So maybe you're on some prescriptions or supplements with this doctor, but now this one is adding them. And this helps just keep it all clear and communicated, so that there isn't medication mistakes. And that can be to your advantage also. So the other thing I do in my appointments, of course, is take notes. And I'm writing down what they've said, what they recommend. And what you'll find is if you're faithful before you leave the appointment and you're asking for this at checkout, you have a copy of today's medical records and the typed out notes of what was said, what was done, what was recommended, the follow-up, what you're supposed to be responsible for, what they're going to be responsible for. It's a checkpoint for everyone. So part of the reason this is so important, I feel, is because most traditional medical doctors are not handing you a treatment plan. So where does that come from? Well, if you remember back on our original, when class 3, part 3, when we talked about the type of doctor, I personally doctor with functional medicine doctors for the majority of my health care personally. And so one of the things that I learned through the years is that they follow up their appointments with a type treatment plan that they then mail me. And it tells me what they recommended and the dosages and whatever else changes, diet, lifestyle, whatever they recommend. And so I have that in writing, so it's really easy to follow. And traditionally, you're going to find that most of your traditional physicians in these categories are not handing you a treatment plan. And so by getting your medical records of that day's appointment, you have a better idea what's expected of you, what changes you can make, and how to best work with your physician. So this is all about how to be your best advocate. It's all in the details. And the more you communicate with your physician, the better they're free to give you their best care. So we hope this has been helpful. And we hope you like our video, and we hope you'll subscribe. That would mean a lot. And also, if you'd recommend and share this with your friends and family, we'd really appreciate it. And of course, come in and see us. Health Styles Market, Gillette, Wyoming. We're at 371 Sinclair Street. And Crystal will put our phone number on, but it's 307-682-8447. And we will see you in the next video. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.